Well, there were two groups of people in the crowd that day. There were a group of people who were rich in spirit, and there were a group of people who were poor in spirit. And Jesus is saying, I have really good news, incredible news for those who are poor in spirit and know it. And I've got no news at all for those who stand here feeling rich in spirit. So what's the difference between being rich and being poor? What's the difference between being affluent and being poverty-stricken? What's the difference between being rich in spirit and poor in spirit? The Pharisees in the crowd that day, you remember that group of men, would consider themselves rich in spirit if you were to ask them. Rich in spiritual knowledge, rich in spiritual piety, affluent in spiritual activity, raising the spiritual bar really high and managing to leap over it with ease almost every time. They were rich in spirit because they didn't need anything from Jesus. They had manufactured enough righteousness in and of their own human willpower to say, we don't actually need whatever he's talking about because we're good. We're fine. We've got this figured out. We can know God because of our performance and effort, so we don't need anything. We're already rich. Thanks very much, Jesus. You can leave us alone. But there was another group represented in the crowd that day, and they were the poor in spirit. They were people who knew that they were not members of the spiritual honors society. They were people who knew they were not setting righteousness records at work every week. They were ones who knew that they were not too impressive spiritually, ethically, and morally. In fact, there were people in the crowd that day who spent most of their time kind of hanging their heads low around Pharisee types, realizing their spiritual net worth was downright depressing, and they knew it. And yet it was to those people that Jesus said, hey, listen up. Divine blessing is coming today to those of you who are spiritually bankrupt. Because I'm announcing to you today, Jesus says, that the kingdom of heaven, the doors of my kingdom, get this, are wide open to the likes of you. The poor in spirit ones. All of you who have already decided that you can't even measure up to the human system of the Pharisees. All of you who've already bailed out of that. Those of you who have just about given up on even hoping that you could ever enter into God's peace and enter into the kingdom of heaven, Jesus says, I tell you, I've got really good news for you. The door to my kingdom is wide open just for the likes of you. Can you imagine the impact of that first beatitude when it landed on that crowd? When it landed on spiritually poverty-stricken people in the crowd that day? Can you imagine? The kingdom of God is open to spiritual debtors like me, even if I don't have a penny of personal righteousness to put on the table. The door is open to me. Could it be? Is it possible? Is it possible that someone even like me would be invited into the greatest gift going in the universe? Could it be? It is. It is true. And the kingdom's doors are open to you as well. Because there is a no elitism in this kingdom. There's no economic bias where you can get in. There's no dress code. There's no membership fee to get in. There's no special privileges for the wealthy once you're in. It's a level playing field. You come needy, spiritually needy in your soul. There is no other way. Hear this, church. There is no other